Hey guys, Dimension Master Studios here, how y'all doing? So I'm sure as you guys know, when it comes to Ninjago, we have gotten a lot of villains over the years, just so many villains. However, with Crystalized ending, it made me realize that when it comes to a lot of these villains, we don't actually know what happened to them after their seasons and where they are by the time of Crystalized. And so in today's video, I decided I was going to share with you guys the fates of every single major Ninjago villain. So let's get into this whole thing. So for this, I'm going to be going over the villains in chronological order for when they showed up in the seasons, meaning that we're starting off with Samukai. And when it comes to Samukai, we know for a fact that he's dead. He died at the end of the pilot season, he returned during Day of the Departed, and yeah, Samukai, he's just dead. Meanwhile, when it comes to Garmadon, it's a bit more interesting considering everything that's happened to him over the years. He initially was a good guy, but then he was corrupted by the Great Devourer. Then he became a good guy at the end of Season 2 after having all the evil and venom drained out of him. He then was sent to the Curse Realm at the end of Season 4. He was then revived as a villain during Season 8 and remained as a bad guy for the remainder of the Oni trilogy. And then Crystalized shows him actively trying to change and become a better person, and by the end of Crystalized, he's still in that position with him trying to become a good guy in his own way. So when it comes to Garmadon, he's definitely changed a lot over the years, and at this point, again, he's trying to become a good person, and I do definitely like that when it comes to Garmadon. Up next, we have Pythor, and when it comes to him, and by extension, the rest of the Council of the Crystal King, Tommy Andreasen, the co-creator of the show, has actually confirmed their fate in a recent interview that he was on the TTV YouTube channel. And during this interview, he said that when it came to the Council of the Crystal King, they were all arrested and they are all in prison. So it's nice to know that we have an answer for all the members of the Council of the Crystal King, save for two, but I'll be talking about them later on. After this, we have Kozu, and when it comes to Kozu, we know for a fact that he's dead. Although we don't actually see him die at any point during Season 2, we know he's dead because we see his spirit return during Day of the Departed. So again, we know that Kozu died at some point, and when it comes to the Overlord, it's not entirely clear when it comes to this guy. Yes, we see him defeated by the end of Crystalized, but we don't know whether or not he's actually been destroyed. Plus, at the same time, Crystalized also suggests that when it comes to the Overlord, he's just going to keep on coming back no matter what happens, so as to whether or not he's going to return at some point, only time will tell. Up next, we have Cryptor, and just like Kozu and Samukai, we know for a fact that Cryptor is dead. We see him die by the end of Season 3, he returns during Day of the Departed, and yeah, this guy is dead. Up next, we then have Chen and Klaus. When it comes to Chen, we know that he was sent to the Curse Realm at the end of Tournament of Elements, and that's where he remained as we saw him during Season 5 in the Cursed Realm, and he was also able to return during Day of the Departed, but we know that when it comes to Chen, he is dead. Klaus, on the other hand, was able to escape from the Cursed Realm, and the Dark Island trilogy actually reveals that Klaus is now in the Underworld. That's where he ended up by the end of the story, so we know where Klaus is. He's just been in the Underworld this whole time. Up next, we have Moro, and just like when it comes to Garmadon, Moro's whole situation is also pretty interesting. Right before Moro was dragged down into the water, he gave Sensei Wu the Realm Crystal and said, "You can only save those who want to be saved." He realized the error of his ways and he did what he could to make up for what he had done, and once again, he let himself get dragged down into the water, and we end up seeing the continuation of this during Day of the Departed, where during this, Moro decides to help Sensei Wu and the ninja by telling them about Yang's plan and what he plans on doing, showing that he has changed as a result of what happened at the end of Season 5, which I do definitely like when it comes to Moro. Moro did have to return to the Departed Realm during DOTD, but it is nice to know that he has had a change of heart, and just like Garmadon, he's trying to become a better person, which is something that I do definitely like. Up next, we have Nanakon, and when it comes to Nanakon, he is still trapped inside the Teapot of Tyran. As a result of Jay's final wish, the events of Skybound were undone, and Nanakon was sent back into the Teapot of Tyran, where he still is to this day. It's not entirely clear as to what happened to Nanakon after this, other than him still being trapped inside the Teapot, and the whole thing with the Teapot showing up a bunch during the Wildbrain era of the show, according to Tommy Andreasen, that was all just meant to be a running gag, although it is possible that in the new book that's going to be released, Nanakon will end up returning, but we'll just have to wait and see. Also, one last thing, as to whether or not Nanakon actually remembers the events of Skybound, that's also not entirely clear. We know that Jay and Nia remember the events of Skybound, but when it comes to Nanakon, again, that's something that we don't know about. After this, we have Yang, and if you want to get technical, Yang is a ghost, so technically he's dead. But when it comes to Yang, he did end up redeeming himself by the end of Day of the Departed by once again realizing what he had done. Plus, at the same time, when it comes to Yang, he was never really a bad guy in the first place, he just wanted to be remembered. Plus, he was able to help Cole become a human again. So when it comes to Yang, by the end of Day of the Departed, he is a good guy. After this, we have the Time Twins, and the short golden hour reveals that Crocs and Crux are currently stuck in the time stream as a result of Sensei Wu breaking Iron Doom. Now, as to why Sensei Wu was immune from all the time-related stuff while Crux and Crocs are stuck in the time stream, that's something that I'm not entirely sure about, although I have a feeling that it probably has to do with Sensei Wu coming into contact with the Reversal Blade. I feel like that might have something to do with everything, but I'm not entirely sure, and that is purely speculation. Up next, we have Harumi, and according to Tommy Andreasen, Harumi's fate is up to interpretation when it comes to stuff like whether or not she got arrested by the end of the season, whether or not she's been redeemed, and whether or not her and Lloyd are together by the end of the season. And when it comes to my own interpretation of the events, I do think that Harumi should get arrested after all the terrible stuff that she's done over her time during the show. I don't think that Harumi redeemed herself during the events of Crystalized, because her entire redemption basically boils down to her blaming someone else for her problems, and that's it. Plus, Harumi never once takes accountability for her actions at any point during Crystalized, especially during the final few episodes. And I do not think that her and Lloyd should get together. I think that is a really bad idea, and I even made an entire video talking about why the two of them should not get together. Up next, we have Iron Baron, and towards the end of Season 9, Firstborn ends up defeating Iron Baron by basically turning him into a statue, although we do still hear Iron Baron inside the statue. So as to whether or not he's alive, that's not entirely clear, although I'd have to imagine that at this point, either A, he is dead as a result of being inside of a statue for years, or B, he was somehow able to escape, but he was captured by the Dragon Hunters and he's their prisoner. So yeah, either way, things aren't looking good for Iron Baron. After this, we have the Omega, and when it comes to the Omega, we know for a fact that he's dead because we see him and the Oni get destroyed by the Tornado of Creation at the end of March of the Oni. Up next, we have Asphira, and when it comes to Asphira, just like the rest of the members of the council, she is currently arrested and is in prison. Up next, we then have Vex and the Ice Emperor, and when it comes to Vex, we know that he was banished at the end of the Ice chapter, and he's somewhere in the Netherrealm. As for the Ice Emperor, on the other hand, that situation is a bit trickier because technically the Ice Emperor is Zane, and we know that Zane's still alive. Plus, we see Zane briefly become the Ice Emperor again during Return of the Ice Emperor. Plus, Tommy Andreasen also said in that interview that he has some ideas as to what could happen with the Ice Emperor, and he's hoping that the new writers pick up those ideas. And so, who knows, we might get a chance to see the Ice Emperor show up again at some point, and that is something that I would honestly really like to see so we could get a proper conclusion to the storyline. Up next, we have Unagami, and Unagami is in a position pretty similar to Sensei Yang. Both of them are villains who weren't really bad guys, who ended up doing something good by the end of the season that they were a part of. And when it came to Unagami, that was him releasing all the players from Prime Empire, as well as also giving the NPCs the choice to travel to the real world. So Unagami became a good guy by the end of Prime Empire. Up next, we have King Vangelis, and with him being a member of the council, he was also arrested and he was put behind bars. Up next, we have Chief Mamatus, and I know that he's not technically a villain because the Keepers were never bad guys, but I still wanted to bring him up. And when it comes to the Keepers, presumably they're still on the island, although with them no longer needing to protect the Storm Amulet, it does leave you to wonder as to what exactly these guys are doing now. It's anyone's guess at this point, really. Up next, we have Calamar, and when it comes to Calamar, we know for a fact that he's dead because we see him get eaten by Wajira at the end of Seabound. And I know that Pythor was also eaten by a giant serpent and he was able to survive, but considering what happened to Wajira, I don't think that Calamar survived getting eaten by Wajira and then exploding with a whole bunch of storm and electrical energy. Finally, that leaves us with the Mechanic and Mr. F. When it comes to the Mechanic, with him being a member of the council, he was arrested. Meanwhile, when it comes to Mr. F, Tommy Andreasen said that his fate is also up to interpretation. So it's possible that when it comes to Mr. F, he could still be alive, and we'll just have to wait and see whether or not that's the case. And so that's pretty much all I got for you guys. That is the fate of every major Ninjago villain. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. So tell me down below, what do you guys think? What are your guys' thoughts on this whole situation? And tell me, was there anything that I left out when it came to this video? Tell me down below, and I hope you guys enjoy. Later, guys. This is Dimension Master Studios, signing off.